Hey everybody, this is Johnny with Garden Valley Brewing. We're here with brewing assistant Chico. And yes, it's winter here in Garden Valley. February, near the end of February. And as you can see, there's a ton of snow. Anyway, today we're going to brew a Corona clone beer, if you will. I call it Keystone Johnny. So let's get started. Okay, so what we're going to do here today, we're using American Ale 1056 yeast in this beer. We've also got 3 pounds of dried malt extract. And we're going to be using a pound each of corn syrup solids and rice syrup solids. In our brew pot, we've brought 2.5 gallons of water to boil. And we're going to be stirring in our malt extract here in just a moment. And in our fermenter, here we have added 2.5 gallons of water as well. So that'll sit there till we're ready to dump the rest in there. So now we're going to go stir in that dried malt extract. Okay, we've dumped in that extract. Now it's important that you turn the heat off of your brew pot before you do this. You could wind up scalding this stuff to the bottom. You don't want to do that. So I've dumped it in there, and because this is dried malt extract and the water's very hot, it's going to dissolve pretty easy. So I'm just going to go ahead and stir this stuff in here really good. It gets nice and dissolved, no clumps. There we go, it's looking good. Trying to get the stuff on the sides here. Alright, make sure I got it real good here. Alright, it looks pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and bring this back up to a boil, and once we do, we'll add our first hop addition. Just a quick note, still waiting on the boil, we're getting there. But you want to keep an eye on this. I have a pretty big brew pot here, as you can see. This is a 10-gallon brew pot. I've only got 2.5 gallons of water in here with the malt extract, so you know, I don't have much danger of a boil over, but if you have a smaller pot and you're not watching this, when you hit boil, that foam could rise and boil over and make one hell of a mess. So just keep an eye on it. Starts to get up too high and wants to boil over, you know, turn the heat down a little bit, and that helps to bring it down. You can also blow on it and it might bring the foam down as well. Anyway, still waiting on the boil, and then we'll do our first hop addition. Alright, so we're coming up to the boil here. We're at the right temperature anyway. You can see that foam rising like I was talking about. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. It's going to go down on its own here. Doesn't have, it can't come up to the top. No way. Not in this pot. So once that foam subsides here, I'm going to go ahead and do my first hop addition in just a moment. Okay, our foam has subsided in our brew pot, so I'm going to do our first hop addition. Now this recipe here, I've got 1 ounce of sterling hop pellets here, alpha acids 10.8. So for my bittering addition, I'm going to put 3/4 of an ounce in right now, and we're going to boil that for 60 minutes. The remaining 1/4 of an ounce is going to go in at the end for aroma. So I've got a little scale here, cheap scale we got from somewhere. So I can measure out that 1/4 of an ounce. I know I have 3/4 left here. Come on over to the brew pot. Oil is cooking, and in go the hops. All right. So I like to stir them in there just a bit. Make sure they're mixed up real good. All right, good. All right, so this is going to be my 60-minute mark, so I'm going to check the clock here. and it is 10:35 a.m. So at the 60-minute mark, I'm going to come back to this, and at that time, I'm going to stir in my additional ingredients, including the rest of my hops. So we will see you in 60 minutes. Apparently the excitement of the brew day is a little much for a brewing assistant Chico. It has worn him out. Another quick note here. So again, we're using Y Yeast American Ale, 1056 yeast. You can see that this pouch is pretty poofed up. So you have to activate the pouch. So this morning when I woke up, I took it out of the refrigerator where I kept it, and there's a small pouch inside this pouch, and if you feel around, you'll feel it. It feels like a bubble, and you want to trap that pouch in the corner, which I typically put it down here and I push it and I trap it in this corner here, and then I just essentially smack it to pop it, right? You want to make sure that pops, and you shake it up. That activates this stuff and makes this poof up real good, and this is a good sign. This means that we've got good healthy yeast in here. With the amount of malt I'm using in this recipe, I'm really not going to need to have a yeast starter. I'll dump this right in and this will ferment and life will be good. So don't forget to activate your yeast by popping that nutrient pouch inside the package. Well, we're about 15 minutes from the end of the boil before we do our second and last hop addition. So anyway, I'm going to plan ahead here. I've got my yeast packet here all poofed up. I've got the scissors I'm going to use to cut it. And I keep a little spray bottle of sanitizer here. So I'm going to sanitize the yeast packet here real good. So when I cut this, I don't get any infection here. Okay, that's good. I'm going to hit these scissors too. Alright, it's pretty good. I'll just let that sit there like that. So I'll be ready to cut this and dump it right in the fermenter when the time comes. Alright, so just still waiting for the end of the boil. That should be in just a few minutes. Okay, it's been an hour, 60 minutes, so I've turned the heat off to the brew pot here. And so I'm going to dump in our additional additions here. We've got 1 pound of rice syrup solid. Just going to dump it right in there. Maybe. There we go. Okay, we got that in there. I'm going to dump in 1 pound of corn syrup solids. Both of these two additions essentially are going to lighten the body of the beer so it's more Corona-like. And then ratchet up the alcohol to about 5% as well. Now we're going to put in our last hop addition as well. This is for flavor. So we're going to do this with 5 minutes left. In total, it's a 65-minute boil. We've stopped at 60. I'm going to go ahead and stir all this stuff back in here. We just added. Got it all stirred up real good. Those rice solids and corn syrup solids are going to dissolve really easy in this hot water. That's pretty good. Alright, so we're going to turn the heat back on this thing. And then we're going to boil, once it comes to a boil, we're going to boil 5 more minutes. And then I'm going to put the lid on the kettle. And I'm going to take this thing downstairs. And we're going to go ahead and chill the beer so we can dump it in the fermenter. Okay, we finished up boiling the last 5 minutes and I brought the beer down here. So now we're going to chill it. So what I've got going here, hose adapter on my sink faucet here. It's going to go to what's called an immersion chiller, which is what this dude is. And we're going to drop that in the beer to cool it off down to about 90 degrees in about 5 or 10 minutes. So I'll just get the water going here on this. Slowly, just to make sure I don't have any leaks. I don't want any of that water going into my beer. I'll get through all this hose, so it's going to take a little bit. The water's starting to come through it. Come out there. Still some air bubbles in there, so I like to let that get on through there. It'll jerk a little bit when it finally gets the full. There we go, and I'll turn up the water a little more. That's good. Way through here. Make sure my drain's open. Alright, looking pretty good. So, take that lid off. Put this side here. There we go. So that's going to cool this beer off down to 90 degrees in about 5 or 10 minutes. I'll just put this lid back on to kind of try to keep whatever bacteria out that I can. Alright, we're going to cool this down to 90 degrees. And then we're going to go dump the contents of that pot up into the fermenter upstairs. Okay, we can see that I only have 4.5 gallons in there. I'm going to need about 5 1/4. So I'm going to top this off with some sterile water to bring it up to about 5 1/4. And then I'm going to take my hydrometer measurement. Okay, we got it up to about 5 1/4. I'm going to stir all this up, mix it up really good. Alright, I'll take a hydrometer measurement. Sanitize the valve real good here. I'm going to take just enough to make this hydrometer wand rise up. There it goes, coming up. Shut that off. Mess with that in a little while. We'll sanitize this valve real good. Alright. Now we will add our yeast. Alright, we'll mess with that in a while, figure out what our starting gravity is in a bit. What we're going to do now is put the yeast in, so let me get this lid off of here. Set it to the side here. Alright, I've got my yeast down here all ready to go. I'm going to cut the corner with sanitized scissors. Hear the air escape. Pretty good. Alright, so I cut the corner off there. So I'm going to go up here and just dump it right in the fermenter. Nice. Don't cut the hole too big so that the activation pouch comes out. I hear it's still in there, so that's good. All right, I'm going to put my lid on my fermenter. I'm going to latch it up. Great camera work, I know. All right. Come on. All right, it's nice and tight. And I'm going to fill my airlock here with some sanitized water. And then I'm just going to wait on fermentation, which should happen tomorrow. And we'll see bubbling in the airlock. So we'll come back tomorrow and we'll see how we're doing. All right, I put some sanitized water in the airlock here. So that starts bubbling, and we know we got fermentation going. So on this kind of fermenter, once I see fermentation is going, I'm gonna open my bottom valve here and pull some of the trub off, which is the crap that settles at the bottom. And I'll probably do that every 2 days until I see that the airlock is coming to a stop, kind of like what it is now, although it hasn't started yet. And then I'll know it's done fermenting, and then I'll pull it one more time, get all the crap off the bottom, and then I'll wait a week before I keg it out of this valve. But that'll be part of this video, so we'll see that as well. All right, hydrometer. All right, so I know my temperature is 68. It's cooled down a bit. And my hydrometer reading is 1.0, bottom of the meniscus, 1.046. Perfect. Our target was 1.045, so we're good to go there. All right, so just going to clean up, wait for fermentation, and we will go from there. Okay, we've got action in the airlock, so it is fermenting. This is day 2. So now we're going to go ahead and drain the trub out of this thing from the bottom valve, see what we got. It's very important that you remove this before you do that, if you have this kind of fermenter, because if you don't, it will suck in the nasty air and water that's in that thing. I'm going to cover this with a paper towel before I open this valve, just to kind of prevent other air from going in. Okay, so there we go. Go ahead and see what we get here. Try to make this so you can see the stuff coming out here. Oh boy, that sure shot out. Lower it down here. Alright, so we got some out there anyway. I have to clean that mess up. And then we'll just keep doing that every couple days here. That's a majority of the hops there that came out. So that's a good thing. And we'll do it again in about 2 days. Okay, the airlock has no activity after several days, so we have got to the end of fermentation. Take a hydrometer reading, we're about 1.012, which is what I expected. So I've drained some more trub out already, and we're going to let this beer sit for another 4 days. It still needs to clear up a little bit, you can see. I may have to filter it, but now we can calculate the alcohol percentage. Okay, now we're going to figure out the alcohol by volume here. So we're going to go to Garden Valley Brewing. And click on Brewing Tools here, and what's my alcohol by volume? Alright, and we know that in here our original gravity was 1046, and now we know that our finished gravity, our final gravity, is 1012. So we can see here our ABV is 4.7. I was shooting for 4.5, so that's pretty darn good right there. If you don't want to go to Garden Valley Brewing to find this, you can simply go ABV calculator in Google. It will take you to the same thing. Okay, so we are kegging our beer now out of the fermenter here. You can see it's slowly going down. Went ahead and I took the last bit of yeast and shrub off the bottom, pulling that valve. And I took the lid off, and I'm coming right out of the sampling valve here, right into my keg, which was filled with CO2. I'm using my spunding valve to vent the CO2 out as the beer goes in. This way the beer doesn't hit oxygen while it's going in the keg. So we're going to go ahead and keg this up here, and then we're going to go ahead and chill it and help some more of the sediment fall out. You can see it's still a little bit cloudy. And then we will carbonate it up, and it will be ready to serve. And there you have it. That was our Corona clone from Garden Valley Brewing. As always, our Garden Valley Brewing videos are filmed at beautiful Terrace Lakes Resort in Garden Valley, Idaho. This is Johnny with Brewing Assistant Chico. Until the next video, stretch those livers.